Hey, welcome back to Morning Show. Let's bring in now Tim Kaine. He is a junior senator from the state of Virginia, member of Armed Services Committee and Foreign Relations Committee, and also now, obviously, on the very short list for Hillary Clinton as Vice President of the United States. What do you respond? How do you respond to Terry McAuliffe, your governor, doing you absolutely no favors?
Joe, I'm going to break news on the show this morning and tell you, you know, I actually love being in the United States Senate. I think it's fashionable now for senators to say that they hate being here, but I'm working on issues I care about every day. I've got great committees, and I got a big task ahead of me. I've been trying to convince Congress that 15 months into a war, we should actually, shockingly, have a vote and put our imprimatur on it. And so I've got, big jobs ahead of me, but Terry McAuliffe is a great salesman, and he has a natural bias toward those of us who come from the great Commonwealth.
I guess so. So, yeah, you are. Congratulations on actually staying in the United States Senate more than 10 minutes without launching Presidential Exploratory Committee. You, of 100 senators, stand alone, sir. Let's talk about what's happening right now in Syria and what's happening in Iraq and what's happening in the battle against ISIS. Ian Bremmer yesterday, I saw, sent out a tweet that said that Russia now has more boots on the ground in Syria and Iraq in the fight against ISIS than does the United States of America. It seems to me that we're leading from behind, and from behind Vladimir Putin. It doesn't seem like a safe thing to do. What's your reaction?
Well, Joe, I think that the problem is we don't have a comprehensive strategy. When this war started, August of 2014, two very limited purposes: protect U.S. consulate in Erbil and protect Yazidis on Mount Sinjar from a humanitarian crisis. We've seen ISIL go from Iraq and Syria to now a presence in Afghanistan, Yemen, Somalia. We just recently dispatched troops to Cameroon to counter Boko Haram, which has sworn allegiance to ISIL, Yemen. So this is a threat that's mutating. We've spent nearly $5 billion, $11 million a day. We've lost service members' lives. It's time to really have a strategy between Congress and the President, and that involves Congress being willing to engage, and Congress hasn't been willing to do that.
Senator, let me ask you then, and I mean, obviously it all starts with the Commander-in-Chief, but you actually have 200,000 people, over 200,000 people have died in Syria since this conflict began. And here we are, November of 2015, years later, and you say we still don't have a strategy. Why doesn't the United States of America, after the refugee crisis of unspeakable proportions, after the slaughter of over 200,000 people in Syria, after the arrival of Putin's armies, why do we still not have a strategy?
Joe, put it this way, we're doing things, but they just don't knit together into a whole. So we are the largest provider of humanitarian aid to Syrian refugees, $4+ billion. That's a positive. We've got U.S. forces working with the Iraqi military. I think that's a positive, and I would vote for it. Doesn't fit together because there's frankly three pieces to this crisis. There is the battle against ISIL, there is what to do about Assad and his atrocities, and there is what to do with these millions of refugees, the worst humanitarian crisis since World War II. And the administration hasn't put on the table a strategy that encompasses all three, and frankly, Congress hasn't really been demanding it. What Congress wants to do is criticize the White House, but neither authorize nor stop what the President is doing. Congress is just trying to keep its fingerprints off this, and it's one of the most shocking examples of congressional abdication of an important power, the power to declare war, in the history of this country.
Senator Kaine, it's Willie Geist in New York. One of the things we've heard again and again from the President was that Assad must go. We had the British Foreign Secretary seated here with us yesterday. He said it's clear Assad must go. If that's true, why hasn't Assad gone?
Well, I'll give you my intuition, Willie. I think when the President said Assad must go, I think it was probably a little bit of a mistake. He got out ahead of himself. When he said those words, he realized President Bush said Saddam Hussein must go. I said Gaddafi must go. I said Mubarak must go. When the United States has tried to say who the leader of another country should be in this region, we've usually not done a very good job at it. I think after the President made that commitment, Assad must go. He raised expectations in Syria, and then he didn't follow through on it because he realized, frankly, the limits of America's ability to change a regime that did dash a lot of hopes and expectations, and that was unfortunate. But look, we got to deal with the situation today. Russia is there on the ground. Because they're there in Syria and propping up the Assad regime, you see ISIL celebrating the downing of this Russian aircraft in the Sinai. And so there is a joint interest between the U.S. and Russia. It's a small overlap in our sort of Venn diagram in terms of bringing stability to Syria. And it's my hope that the discussions that Secretary Kerry restarted in Vienna 2 Fridays ago might start to pick up some momentum again.
We've got 100 more questions for you on this, but we're up against a hard break, so love to have you come back very soon. Senator Tim Kaine.